have a couple of comments towards or aimed at the BICB board. I had a quick look through your financial statements. You'll be pleased to know that you meet the financial requirements if you ever needed to get a licence. That should hopefully give you a bit of comfort. And also to let you know, if you weren't already aware, myself personally, but also through QBCC, is a massive advocate for BICB, have for a number of years. The wealth of knowledge within this room is probably one of the biggest sources of information that we get through the building industry. So through the attendances of BICB meetings back when it was at Cooperoo Bowls or RSL with Wayne, we used to attend quite regularly, and I have remained an advocate for BICB since then, and that's gone all the way up to our commissioner, and she's now a very staunch and strong advocate of your organisation as well. Thank you. No, I've got one. Thank you. And I should probably also say I'm not a public speaker, so please don't judge me on my public speaking skills. Why do we have the financial requirements? The main intent behind the requirements are to minimise the damage of the building industry. Common misconception that we can stop insolvencies. We can't. It's a legal avenue for someone to put their entity into liquidation or administration if they are insolvent. Our role is to minimise the damage, and we become more aware now of those risks and the financial difficulties so we can act a lot sooner. So that's the whole aim behind those financial requirements. They've now been in place since 2019 and are quite effective as well. The area that I head up, I'll go in reverse order. The Financial Investigations Unit, we deal with the money's owed complaints. We also do payment claim audits, and we have a very large naughty chair, which quite a few people within this room are aware of. If someone goes into liquidation or administration, their director or secretaries are no longer entitled to hold a building licence for a period of 3 years. If they go twice, they're excluded for life. Our trust compliance team, a little bit controversial at the moment, depending on what political party you follow, but they deal with the project trust and retention trust accounts. At the moment, that's for the government projects and large residential projects, 10 mil or over. It is scheduled to be rolled out to the residential area in 2025. I'm not sure how that looks after a very important date coming up on Saturday. So that one may change in the future, but at this stage it's for those government projects. The Financial Assessment Unit deals with all the annual reporting information, so we get financial statements once a year from all our licensees. We also get financial reports when they want to upgrade or downgrade their licence, and we also have a naughty chair within there as well, where if we become aware of a financial difficulty, we can lead out with some action on that. This is the part that I really wanted to run through with you on. I've been employed by QBCC for 32 years, and if you see all my grey hairs, it was straight out of kindergarten, I swear. But it was on the fringe of the Building Registration Board, then it went to Building Services Authority, now QBCC. Over that period of time, we have more intel now than we've ever had before. We are very diverse in our intel range. So we have our money's owed complaint process, which I'll go through. We've got building inspectors that go out for incomplete work or defective work, so they get a lot of intel, as do our contact centres and our regional offices. We've got regional offices from Cairns all the way down to Gold Coast. Also within our same umbrella, we have defective work and incomplete work. Big difference between the two. One triggers more of a risk than the other. Incomplete work is usually once you've gone broke. Defective work, there can be indicators that you're not paying your subcontractors or you're not having very good supervision on site. Within the QBCC umbrella, we also have the adjudication process. So someone can lodge an application for adjudication. That's for or against will trigger a risk for us. And then, as I said, we've also got their financial statements for licensees that come in every year. We also do request financial statements outside of that cycle. So at any stage, we can tell what a builder's financial position is or should be. Then external, we have access to court actions, winding up applications and judgment debts. We do get told about ATO defaults, so we are aware, similar to what you are. We're aware if a builder defaults to Telstra. We're also aware if they apply to Telstra for credit. The biggest one for us, BICB supply data. If you've been to a meeting and you see me scribbling away as I did today, it's not necessarily we're going to go out, I'm going to go back to the office and press some buttons. We are very similar to the ATO. We're risk-based, and we'll take any range of action from checking out all of our other intel that we've got and seeing if there's a risk there, or we'll continue to watch that. I'll come back next month to your meeting, and if that person's still mentioned again, that might increase the risk for us. We do share intel with our counterparts, New South Wales and Victoria. Not so much WA or Northern Territory. WA has a very, it's not very robust regulatory model where to get a licence, their financial requirements in Western Australia is to have $50,000 in the bank, and then that's it for the rest of that licensee's life. Whereas Queensland, many builders would say that we're over-regulated. We've got an act that's about 400 pages long, the piece of legislation. So it is very onerous for a builder in Queensland, rightly or wrongly. We say rightly. We're also aware of obligations to work cover. We've got a memorandum of understanding with work cover, as we do with QLeave as well. So we share information with them. We're aware if a licensee is within breach of them. What action we do or can take in a financial, this is only dealing with the financial space, because we also have other arms with defective work and incomplete work. We do undertake regular monitoring, so we are in constant dialogue with the licensee if they are in financial difficulties, and we're becoming a more mature organisation through all of the intel that we have and the better laws that we have in place. We have really two spheres on that risk matrix. We'll either help that licensee come out and improve their position and go on and be a better licensee, or we'll assist them exit the industry. So that's our aim. One of those two things we will deal with. We can request internal management accounts, which is their internal bookkeeping system. If we believe that there is a concern there, we don't need any grounds to do that. We'll do that every day of the week. We'll start a financial audit where that licensee may need to go out to, does need to go out to their accountant and get their accounts signed off and verified. That's when we have actual cause that they are in difficulties. We'll issue a show cause notice that says here's all our concerns, we're going to suspend you in 21 days unless you do something about that. We can also put a licence condition on, which is public, where the public is aware that we have concerns that may lead to regular reporting for that licensee. Or I think GCB was mentioned previous this morning, we will take immediate suspension action if we think that there is immediate harm to the industry. As with any government organisation, immediate doesn't necessarily mean immediate, because we have to brief 1,000 people on that. We also need to give, although immediate says we won't give natural justice, we always do ring the director and say we're actually considering taking your licence off you today. What do you say about that? The main parts that we're trying to identify or trying to alleviate is the financial difficulty in the industry and the failure to pay. And it's a very strong government message. All subcontractors and licensees need to pay on time and in full, and there's a number of different laws around that. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to jump out. That's actually the incorrect title to that slide. This information is in relation to the small business restructuring practitioner arrangements that the ATO touched on. We've got, since it was introduced in 2022, we've got around about 170 licensees that form part of these restructuring proposals. They're for the very small end of town for our licensees. They're mainly SC2s that can't turn over more than $800,000. The main reason for that is the cap's $1 million. There's very few building entities within Queensland that have creditors of less than $1 million. Because the restructuring arrangement came into place in 2022, it doesn't form part of our exclusion process, same as a liquidation or an administration would do, because those laws were in existence well before this part came out. So it doesn't trigger an exclusion where a director would be without their licence for 3 years. Out of those 170 odd that we have, as I said, the vast majority are a smaller end of town. About 95% of them, the sole creditor is the ATO. And thankfully, she might have departed the building already, because we take the view that it sucks to be the tax man, but at least it's not a subcontractor, supplier or homeowner. So we take the view that whilst that is unfortunate for the tax office, there's that's not a large risk to the building industry while it's only the ATO. So we will continue to monitor that process and make sure that licensee comes out the other side. For that, around about 170 licensees that are affected by that, we have about 5 that we said, unfortunately, we don't care. We're going to bat on regardless, because there was a lot of risk there. There was monies owed complaints, there was defective work. We say, unfortunately, we are still going to take regulatory action. We're not going to pause that because you've entered into that process. There's a number of registered liquidators at the moment that are agitating to lift that threshold from $1 million to $10 million. Because they're missing out on a vast market, and there's a lot of money there for them to capture. We will take a different view. If that threshold gets moved from $1 million to $10 million, there will be subcontractors, suppliers and homeowners at stake, so we will probably we'll probably agitate to get that moved into the exclusion provision then. And I'm actually meeting with the Insolvency Management Committee in a week's time to discuss. They believe that QBCC should amend our laws to allow them to increase that threshold, and we say we're going to assess the risk to the industry first. Oh, and that's a repeat of that slide with the correct title. The key contributors that we've seen in relation to the building industry financial difficulties, no real shock to probably anyone within this room. We do see blurring of lines between personal and business expenses. We commonly see a licensed entity that's a company and it has child support payments, and we go, well, unless you're running a creche, not really sure how that's working out. Not collecting money on time, we will always say to a licensee, and I think I mentioned to my counterpart from VBA this morning, I've worked at QBCC for 30 years. I love my job. If they don't pay me, I'm not coming back tomorrow, I can tell you that. So we do say to our licensees, value the money that you have. If someone owes you money in the building industry and you're a subcontractor, don't be waiting 6 months to try and recover that money. Take action as soon as you can. Not relying on the next big job to pay for your previous job, always fraught with danger in the building industry. It only takes one hiccup and you're in a whole lot deeper than what you would have been. And some of the mitigators that we would say, particularly for your areas, we would say the biggest one would be speak to your creditors in a timely manner. Don't put your head in the sand. And some of the names that were mentioned this morning are probably guilty of that. We are more willing to work with a licensee if they have an open dialogue with us. We will ensure that the money that they owe comes back into that entity and makes it a better building entity, better building business. We've also seen within the building industry a lot of market changes that builders need to be aware of, and using Metricon as the example, biggest builder in Australia, definitely biggest builder in Queensland. They got hit really heavily with fixed price contracts around about the time of COVID. They were aware that that train was coming down the track. They were aware that there was going to be a shortage of materials, there was going to be a shortage of trades. They actually parked all of their unprofitable contracts and went and chased the profitable ones, new profitable ones at better prices to bring that cash flow back into that entity. All of those homeowners that had the unprofitable contracts had to sit and wait for their houses for 2 or 3 years, but there was no one in the industry that could have completed their houses for the price at which kind of locked in 2021, 22. They obviously work on a lot larger margin and a lot larger scope than what our small licensees do. But the biggest message was make sure that you are, or try and be familiar with the train that's coming down that tunnel. I did actually also want to cover off, and it's not on that slide, I might have given you an incomplete slide, I apologise, Carla. The money's owed process, if you're not aware of it, it is open to suppliers as well, so goods or services within the industry. QBCC is not two things. We are not a debt collector, so we cannot physically recover the money on your behalf. What we can do is take regulatory action against that licensee, and sometimes that encourages them to pay you. We're also not a mediator, so we can't mediate a dispute. That's probably more common within a subcontractor and a subcontractor and a licensee. It's very unusual to have a dispute between a licensee and a supplier, and we obviously know that. So if there's a monies owed complaint that comes in and it is from a supplier, there's a lot more risk attached to that than if it would be between a subcontractor and a licensee. There are things when you lodge a monies owed complaint to QBCC, there are things that can assist us to make that process a whole lot quicker for you. That is the contract or the quote or anything that sets out the payment terms to the licensee. Also any contract or legal terms that set out the service of documents. So are you going to email quotes? Are you going to email payment claims? We also need a copy of the payment claim, so the invoice, and we need to know how you sent that to them and if they received it. So what we don't want to do is take regulatory action on a licensee if we can't prove that they received that invoice from you. So if you've got an email or whatever you have out of your QuickBooks or Xero or anything like that, that establishes that the invoice has been served to that licensee and that they have received it, that's enough for us to act on. That was very quick, probably not as robust as the ATO one, but any questions, any feedback? Yes.
Hang on. Thank you. That was amazing. I do have a question about one that we discussed in the meeting this morning. So I'm not going to name names now. Obviously, we've got different people in the room, but I'll say page 2, line 42. So for those who spoke about this one earlier, and that's an example of someone who's overdue with quite a few of us in the room. They're trading over their category as well. So even looking at that, the guideline is within a certain amount. So if they're trading over, they're significantly over. Should we be reporting that to you as well? Is there a process to report those trading outside MFR?
Yes, there is a formal process. Mm-hmm. You can lodge a notice of offence form. What I would like to do, though, is break down that bureaucratic barrier. So if you're not comfortable emailing me directly...
no, I'm happy to.
Okay. Yeah, the other avenue is, without throwing Carla under the bus, let Carla know and she'll tell me.
Yeah.
Either way, it's going to get back to me.
Yeah, perfect. And I had another question. So one of these license holders that I've seen as well, and also I'll say the same person, has a condition on their licence that it's only applicable as long as they hold a visa to be in Australia.
Oh.
Is that usual? I haven't seen that before.
No, that might be an old.
Okay, I'll email that through as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for your presentation. Do you have any comment or thoughts on the general health of your licence holders, at the moment, last 3 months, 6 months?
Within the last, and I'm sure it would be no surprise, ATO's just confirmed it as well, the last 12 to 18 months, ATO's aggressive with their debt book. That has increased the amount of regulatory action that we have taken. And we actually started at top end down, and we started at ATO debts 300 and up. We also then consider the risk to the industry if they're a small contractor or a large contractor. But in relation to are they in any more financial difficulty than previous, the answer would probably be no.
Hello.
Hi.
Just looking at SBRs, something that we all are navigating at the moment.
Yep.
What would you say, in your opinion, would be the success rate of those entering into SBRs?
That's it's a little bit difficult to answer at this stage. There are a lot of the SBRs that involve future trading. So the director has said the payment plan, essentially, to creditors is, I'm going to pay you $5,000 per month for the next 24 months. We haven't seen the end of those yet because the process only started in 2022. So they have to finalise the plan within a maximum of 3 years. For the vast majority, and the vast majority for us has been the ATO debt, for the vast majority, the highest one that we've seen is 35 cents in the dollar. The lowest has been around about 12 cents in the dollar. Because the ATO is willing to take that, we see that as a success for that business to come out the other side. They extinguish that debt. Again, if there were subcontractor suppliers and homeowners involved, there would be less success rate because we would act on those. And we aren't acting on them yet because there's low risk to the industry if ATO is the main and sole creditor. So it's a bit early to tell the success rate until we come out the other side of most of those 24-month payment plans, essentially. There's been very, very few out of the 140 so far that have terminated those proposals because they haven't kept up with those monthly payments.
So I have a question for you with regards to that. When a company, a construction company or business enters into the small business restructuring, what are the plans for QBCC to monitor them after their payment arrangements have completed?
So we have a process. We pick up the appointment through, we get daily alerts, and it is an ASIC alert that we get. The process is we go straight out to the practitioner and say, we're aware that you've been appointed. They'll give us a copy of the proposal. Once it's been accepted by the creditor, we then monitor that process. And if it's a 24-month plan, we have the annual reporting cycle within there. We have data and intel to make sure that they are staying on track with that. At the end of that process, and if it's a one-off payment that they've offered, let's say the ATO, we're going to pay you $150,000 within 14 days of acceptance of this plan. We make sure that the payment has been made in accordance with the proposal, and then we will say to that creditor or that licensee, we'll give you a month, and then you need to provide us with new financial information to make sure that you do continue to comply with the financial requirements.
Hi, just in regards...
That was a very long-winded answer then, sorry.
Just in regards to builders trading over their that category and advising them that they need to update their licence, a lot of their responses is it's going to cost me quite a lot of money to do that. Is that true, or what are the fees and...
So it depends on the accountant that you engage.
Right.
When a licensee needs to provide signed financial statements, they need to go to a qualified accountant to do that. And this is a very long-winded answer again, I apologise. The Australian Accounting Standards Board changed the accounting requirements in 2021, which said anyone that provides financial information to a regulator has to be general purpose. I'm not going to bore you with the details unless you're a chartered accountant or CPA. It's quite a dry content, but essentially general purpose financial requirements contain a lot of recognition and measurement put over them. They would generally cost a licensee around about $20,000 to $30,000 to get a set of financial statements done. The small end, we managed to get that process changed through the department to say small to medium businesses can go back to relying on special purpose financial statements for our purpose. They cost around about $3,000 to $5,000.
So short answer, yes.
Yeah, there is a cost, yeah. But having said that, it's part of, if you're trading above your maximum revenue, that means your business is doing better than what it was. You should be able to, you need the assets to maintain and withstand that. There is a reason that we ask you to go to that cost.
Just going back to the question I just asked the previous speaker about. So we have a customer that has a significant tax default listed. A number of people in the room are currently pursuing him for unpaid debt, but yet he still has a $30 million licence. At what point do all of these factors that he's not paying his creditors and he's got a significant tax default, at what point would the licence be pulled? Because this is a residential home builder, so these are people's lives that are going to be impacted by, him not paying anybody.
Absolutely.
But he's clearly got this large licence.
Well, was that name mentioned this morning at all?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the licence is still current. Yeah, I know that there are several people taking collection activity. And
Does it start with a B?
He does.
Right. Just making sure
Yeah.
What are This is a very bureaucratic answer, and I would apologise for the bureaucracy on that. We can't tell you what we do. We can only tell you what's on the public register. That information is confidential between us and the licensee. What I can assure you is that there are things being done. Unless we take an immediate suspension action where it happens very quickly, there are legislative timeframes that we need to follow. So a notice that goes out has a legislative timeframe that we have to comply with. But what I can assure you is that there are things being done. We just can't disclose what they are. We are, or the person is? Yeah, and he's probably doing that to us as well. Unfortunately, that will catch up with him at some stage. We walk that very fine line between taking appropriate action in a timely manner and taking action that can lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. If the background to that is, or a better answer to that is, if we take action and it's not to mitigate the damage to the industry, and they might win lotto the next day or they might be able to sell their house, but we've cut them from their knees, we have then pushed them to insolvency without... It is, and we need to manage that very, very appropriately. We have the data and the intel and all of that to assure us that we are making that decision, but it is managing that fine line of the risk to the industry. Do we act now, or can they get out of it and improve? And that's that transparency between us and the licensee as well, to say, what plan do you have? We've got these concerns and we're going to tell you what these concerns are. What plan do you have in place to improve your financial position in a reasonable period of time? And if you need to go and sell 10 of your jet skis tomorrow, you will do that. For some reason we have an issue with jet skis. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's because I don't own one.
I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is, could the ATO lodge a money's owed complaint?
No, because I don't think they're classed as goods or services.
Oh, okay.
And plus we get their intel anyway, so...
That's true. The other one is, on the licences, when you actually have a look at them on your website, it states that there's 30 demerit points that can be accumulated over a 3-year period before there's a loss or suspension of licence. I've actually seen one that has 42 points.
Sure.
What would be the reason behind them still hanging on to their licence? Guess for me. Give me some sort of examples.
I've got no idea, because that's not my forte. What I would assume is that they have appealed some of those points and they're within that review period where they're arguing that those points shouldn't have been put on.
No dramas. Any more questions from the audience? No? Natasha, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Please thank Natasha for me.